Welcome to Forever Exiled, a Path of Exile podcast. I'm Justin, aka Tags.
Tyler Record Days.
Episode 152 of this here thing we do every week.
You're like a rhymer and a rapper.
Did it rhyme?
Bebop boop.
Did I rhyme
This
stuff?
thing we do, episode 152.
Ooh, I didn't even notice. That's how awesome I am.
Yes.
152. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us again. Big shout out to some patrons. Widow Shawit, that's how it's spelt. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to say Little Charlotte. It's Widow Shawit and Timbo. Thanks for both joining the Patreon. For everybody else who supports the Patreon, your faces are awesome. Our Patreon gets you access to After Dark. You know, it's more us, which is it's our podcast after the podcast.
How do you say without sounding like an arrogant prick? You want more us.
You want more us. If you want more us, get into our Patreon. And we also get you a card and a sticker. So win-win for everyone. Win-win.
All around.
Yeah. So if you're
on your guitar case.
Yep. Patreon, you can check it out. It's I don't know. It's linked in different places. You can find it.
Or lunch kit.
What? Are we coming out with a lunch kit?
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be cool for
only
Forever
for kids though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could give it to your kid. Man, that would be fun. A Forever Exiled lunch kit.
We need to get a new store.
Yeah.
One that gives us more
Those
options.
might be expensive. How was your week, man?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
You don't even have notes for your week. Look at you.
No, man. Dude.
Normally Tyler has a
back
book written for how his week was.
Well, throughout the week, I type in a couple things.
Smart.
And shut your face. So we went to the interior. And the only desert in Canada. It doesn't look like a desert because, you know,
It's got like one of the most beautiful lakes ever too.
Yeah, lots of lakes.
Mm-hmm.
But we went to the okay. All right. For some reason, this is tough. This is tough. No, we went to the interior and it was awesome in that region. I mean, I couldn't live there.
Sure.
But it is.
Tyler's dog is trying to say hello. So we went to the interior.
Yeah, like trying to explain that we went to the interior for the last 30 minutes. My apologies for the interruption. So yes, no, we went to the interior and I love the region, but I'd never lived there. Like I don't like how the Okanagan feels and it's very dusty and dry. Of course, like it's actually obviously a low grade desert, but a desert. And so, but it is nice, you know, allergies disappear when you're there and it's just 30-degree weather all the time. And there wasn't any smoke from any forest fires. There was on the way, a lot of air advisory warnings, but nothing while we were there. And it was just nice and relaxing. We just hung out with my wife's parents and just had a really good time. Stayed there for 4 nights, 5 days. And they're in a location where there's an awesome pool, walking distance. That's just part of the enclosure, kind of like what you were describing your mom had in one of the previous episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're right by a lake. And so it's just really, really nice. And the kids, of course, had a great time and they overcame some barriers. They haven't had a lot of time swimming because with COVID, of course, everything was shut down and the rec centers in our area were shut down. And then, of course, when COVID opens up back up in our area anyway, basically restrictions are gone outside of a couple vaccine things. And I mean, it just sells out. It's like the hottest concert in town. Swimming lessons opens up and boom.
Yep, they were
done
gone
for the summers.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you know, midway through summer, they open up for fall. Boom, they're gone. So the kids haven't had huge opportunities to swim. And even like free swims at the rec center around here, it's just packed.
Oh, is it?
Right? Just well, yeah, just parents wanting. So it's not even worth, you know, the $30 to get the fat. $30. I mean,
is that how much it costs to go swimming?
It's pretty dumb.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a lot for adults. Kids are a little bit cheaper, of course. So anyway, point is we had free access to a pool all the time and the lake, and the kids, they just overcame like those kid fears, you know, of like not putting their face in the water or wanting to like practice blowing, like their whole head a foot underwater and then they're blowing. And then so it ended up that they just, it was all they wanted to do was just swim out to the dock and jump off the dock and go back and forth with water wings, of course.
Yep.
But still. So it was a lot of fun. Those kind of things are exhausting for people, you know, concussion stuff, right? It's like a 3 to 5 hour drive, depending on construction or accidents. And so that kind of stuff's tiring. And we come back and do the newspaper out. But man, it's worth it. It's so fun. My wife had a great time. The kids had a great time. I had a good time. So yeah. How about you? Do you have a good week?
Yeah, it was. This week work was awful, like very busy. I was saying, Christina and I went out for dinner last night, and I'm like, I'm not sure how long I can keep this up. Like I'm being pulled in a billion directions, and I'm not. I'm hitting a breaking point. So it was really good, but it was really, really tough, busy wise, work wise. But family wise, it was good. We went to the zoo, which was fun. Okay. We did that on the weekend, and you've been. Well, like we have memberships, but it's quite often my wife's going with the kids just because I'm working. So I don't go as often as they go. And apparently they had some agreement that when dad comes, we're getting a bike. You can rent a bike that's there.
Oh my goodness. You got one of those bikes?
Yeah. So so people understand, it's a 2-person bike. So 2 people sit beside each other. Well, you can actually sit 3 on the bench.
It's a family bike.
Yeah. And then there's like a rack on the front that 2 smaller children can sit in.
And then there's also seats in the back.
No, there's no seats in the back.
Oh, you didn't get that one.
It's got like there's like a bin in the back where you can put your stuff. But that was awful. That was awful. Because first off, it's not a gear. There's no gears to the bike. It's just, here's your gear, here's your bike. And we have a family of 5 that are riding on this thing. And there's hills. And they're not small hills. They're
not good bike hills. They're good walking hills. Yeah. They're slow grades, but when you're on a bike, it's long. Eternal.
They're very long. So there were multiple times I had to actually get out and push because it was easier to push it than it was to ride it.
I wish I was there to see that.
It was
the dad pushing the family.
Yeah, when we left, I was like, I didn't come here to sweat. Because it was hot too.
Okay, which day was it?
Saturday or Sunday. I don't remember last week, but on the weekend. But it was exhausting. I was dying, straight up dying. So, but they had a blast. The kids didn't care. They were like, "Yeah, go faster." I'm like, "You mother effers! I'm gonna murder you."
So even Logan was sitting up.
He was in the middle because Christina and I were pedaling. There's only 2 sets of pedals, and I was laughing so hard because there were multiple times where I was like, "Could you just help me pedal?" And she's like, "I am pedaling." And then as we stopped at this one spot to get lemonade, and this other family rides up, and I hear the dad go, "Can you please start pedaling?" And I'm like, "I know, see, I know what you're feeling." So it was, the kids had a good time, what else did we do?
Did you see where the wolf enclosure was
I didn't see
vandalized?
anything. I didn't see anything. I was sweating and dying.
Okay.
And that was another funny thing is when you're in the bike, you're not actually getting out that often because the girls are strapped in at the front. It's a whole thing to get them out. It's not like there's just a bar that lifts up and they step out. It's like those swings where you stick the legs in and it's like you're trapped until I get you out, you're in there. So it wasn't a ton of stops. But no, I didn't see any vandalized stuff, but it was fine. It was fun. It wasn't overly busy. We went right at the beginning of the day. So it wasn't super busy, but it was good.
Super hot. Well, good for you.
And then, we went and did some back to school shopping, and there is an Under Armour outlet that had everything in the store, buy one, get one free. And I took some stuff up to the front, like some shirts and whatever. And I was like, how does this work? Do I just pay for the most expensive and the cheapest thing? And he's like, no, he's like, and he's like, it's everything in the store. I'm like, well, what about your shoes? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, you're selling shoes, buy one, get a pair free. He's like, yeah. So we went back and shopped some more and legit. and it was the 2 highest expensive things. It wasn't like buy the most expensive and get the cheapest for free. There were legitimately shoes for free. It was fantastic. So
it was fantastic. Well,
I got some shoes too.
Wow.
And then our kids went, they were gone for a good part of the actual week. So they've been, like you were talking about your kids swimming up there. My kids have become infinitely better at swimming because they've spent the whole summer in a pool. Like my youngest, she's not ever had swimming lessons because she's literally a COVID baby. Like she kind of went, I think she was 2 or 3 when that all started. So she's never had lessons or anything, just what we've taught her. She's now out there swimming and going underwater and stuff. So
it's great.
Yeah, it was a good week. We finished The Boys, the season 3 of The Boys. So that was good. And then
nice.
Yeah, it was just mostly work for the actual week part. It was a ton of work. And I don't want to say too much about it, but I found one of the most exciting humans ever that we're going to get the opportunity to work with. And I don't want to say much because it's a bit of a spoiler. Patrons might know what I'm talking about, but I'm very excited. Very excited. Yeah.
So it's not like us, like you can't hide it because of details
Well, I
and
don't wanna
location.
No, it's details for a surprise that we do once a year, you know? But I'm very excited with the individual.
Oh,
You know now. You know. Yeah, that helped make my week happier.
Good.
So
I'm glad. Well, a couple notes on your week.
Yeah.
Good for you for not being all macho and being like, you know what, I'm being pulled in too many directions. That's fantastic. And I think lots of people need to do it. And good for you for being able to talk. Well, yeah, but a lot of people go through and being like, oh no, it's just a tough week. No, I can handle it. No. And then all of a sudden it's the new normal, but they never want to admit that their job's too much or whatever the circumstances. So it's always healthy for people to say it. So good for you for being able to say it to bajillions of people.
I'm trying to find a way to not just cope with it, but also try and find a balance, because it is the nature of my job. So it is going to have times like this, but it was consuming me, like where working till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night and multiple days in a row. You eventually just kind of hit a breaking point. So I think I'm there.
Yeah.
I think I'm there, and we're going away in a few weeks, and I'm really convincing myself that I'm not going to work while I'm gone. So I hope you don't try it.
Hope you don't. My wife left her work phone here.
Oh my God. That would be like my happiest
It was
ever.
like the biggest step she's ever
done
with that kind of stuff, because she's been for the last few years as she's been moving up and up and up. There's just, it's hard to have that. You have that drive to be successful, but you have that drive to be helpful. You have that drive to actually do things properly and right. But then, of course, there's home time and your own
well-being.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so that was the first time I think she's ever done something like that.
Good for her.
Not like we go away often, but it was
still.
I didn't even have anything to say when she said that she left her phone at home, because I was just so surprised. I didn't even think she would consider it. So
good for her. I did that once. So I didn't even do that on my honeymoon. Even on my honeymoon, I was working. But we did one trip one time with the kids. We went to Great Wolf Lodge, and it was the first time I ever put my phone in the locker and left it in the locker in our room for the whole trip. And it was one of my favorite trips, and I hate that place. It's like noisy kids. Right. It's like Disneyland. It's awful. But it was one of my favorite trips ever, because I actually like fully disconnected. So it won't be like that on this trip. I know there's going to be some stuff, but trying to limit it. You got to enjoy life too.
Yeah, a little bit, at least once or twice before you die.
Well, I have no intention on dying for a very long time. So
of course, I forgot about your fountain of youth.
That's right. I'm gonna live forever. That's the goal.
That's right. Did you know that 2 wolves escaped from our zoo?
Oh, fun. I think you told me that once. I feel like you told me that.
That's why I was asking about the vandalized. Somebody actually cut open the wolf enclosure, and so there's a big
what an idiot. Was that somebody who's like, they shouldn't be in cages? Was that what it was?
It might have been. I don't think they've caught anybody
related
to it yet.
Let's just let them free amongst humans and see how this goes.
Right.
Idiots.
So these are the ones though that these wolves they're born like they're just going to be completely screwed if they are. Yeah. If they escape. So anyway, whatever the reason was that the people or individual broke them out, there's still a big RCMP investigation into it.
Good.
As to who and why, and like actually breaking into the zoo and having that access.
Did this happen after hours? Was this must have happened when people weren't there? Right?
It was discovered during hours.
Oh Jesus, that's a little scary.
It is, because I remember there was like the zoo all of a sudden was closed. All of a sudden they stopped letting people in. And the website said they were open.
Good Lord. Like, if you've got people
it could have been before hours,
open,
but nobody, like, it was just on the spot discovery. Don't let anybody in. So I don't know if they had to usher people out or not. But anyway, it ended up being 2 wolves. And one of them, had no concept of out zoo life. And so they got hit by a car and died, which was very sad, because one of them was. And then one of them they were able to bring back. And so they got one out of the 2 back. But yeah, it was very sad, because those people, they were bawling their eyes out at the press conference, because
that's awful.
It's like to them it's almost
like a pet.
It's not like a pet.
It's not a pet,
people.
but it is.
No, but you love them
for.
like a person with a pet would. So yeah, it was very sad. So anyway, that's why I was asking if you saw any of the vandalism, like how that enclosure looked.
No.
But anyway, I'm glad you're doing
animals.
No, I know you're sweating your balls off,
and I was like, How do we get around this loop faster?
Right. And then the red pandas had a
My
baby.
kids love the red pandas.
Did you notice that?
No.
Was that from Kung Fu Panda? Is that
I don't
why?
know. My kids
The
will
red
always
panda?
love red pandas. I remember seeing one just laying there, and I was like, "Yeah, cool. Let's come on."
It's like I gotta
Dad's
keep this
dying
momentum going.
We
Right.
did-
Don't
we
even
did-
get off the bike. Take a picture.
We did stop actually multiple times, but like even the bikes, it's not like they have brakes like where you hit backwards on the pedals. It's like a crankshaft on the side. So as you're trying to come to a slow, it's like it's just this loud grindy noise.
Hey, did you see Shadow the bear, the big bear, not the little black bears, but the grizzly?
I don't remember.
We have a joke in our family every single time my wife comes with us to the zoo, because sometimes I'll just take the kids
Sure.
on my own, and so I'll drive my wife to work in the summertime, and then we'll have the car to ourselves for a day, and so I'll take them to the zoo or something. So every time it's just the three of us, the kids and I, we always see Shadow. Shadow is a grizzly bear and is in a massive enclosure that's made for a grizzly bear having a fantastic time. And so you can never, ever see Shadow. But every time it's just the kids and I, we see Shadow like having a great time and right up front. And every time my wife's there, Shadow's gone. So we have this hilarious little inside joke about how mom's never allowed to come. Or if we're going to go see the bear, she's got to go on her own.
Yeah.
Like you go check out the little black bears over there. We're going to go check out the grizzly bear, and then we'll swap.
That's
and then maybe
awesome.
you'll see it. But anyway,
Sweet.
I'm glad you had a really good time, and good for you for being honest with yourself about your busyness.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's
nice
get
to see
into you too. We haven't really talked at all this week.
No, I've been gone for like 2 weeks.
It's true. All right, well, let's talk about this week in PoE. Path of Exile.
Yeah, I
That's
hope
the
you've
game.
been paying attention. I've read stuff, but I haven't had any moments to write notes down or anything. It was all spending time with family.
Nice.
So,
all right, what do we got? What happened? I mean, there's obviously some bigger things later, but what's the
community showcase, which is nice. I love all the fan art, and I love, fan art when you're doing it just for fun, when there's no competition. Real fan art. I mean, obviously resubmitted, but when you're just doing fan art for the sake of doing fan art and you're just having some funsies, that's fan art. So
yes, it's really nice looking.
Looks really good. Yeah. Oh, it all is. It all is. It's amazing, artsy fartsy stuff. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Molten Shell. I always love that skill. I don't use it much because I'm not really an armor stacker. I get armor, but what's it called? Is that a guard skill? That's a guard skill.
Mm-hmm.
I normally use something else for a guard skill because I don't have infinite amount of mana unless I'm in my what's that called? My Righteous Fire build.
Okay.
But yeah, it looks really cool. Did you see it?
I did. Yep.
Oh,
yeah, it looks
man.
cool.
And then the vulture pet.
I didn't see it. I'm just looking at it now. That's cool.
Now I don't actually know if it's a pet or if it's a Mark MTX, but it
That's
actually
just a pet. Yeah, I'm just reading
because it actually hovers and interacts with who you've marked. Like it
Oh,
circles
you're
over
right.
the enemy.
over a marked
So I
enemy.
don't-
So I think it's a pet, but it also will function with your marks.
That's pretty cool.
That is
That's
cool, yeah.
pretty cool. So anyway, I really enjoyed that one. That one was pretty neat. And then the mystery box concept art, I enjoy that. I don't know. You always picture, I mean, I'm naive to this stuff because I've never been on the design side of video games when I was in the video game industries. I was never in like the pre-alpha stages of decision making. So it's always neat when you see these concept arts, and I wonder how much effort people put into these concept arts, just the drawings of them.
Yeah, it's
How
pretty cool.
many are rejected? Is it one person that gets them all rejected at once? You know what I mean? And only one of them? Or is there like 6 artists and then only one artist's rendition gets accepted and then they're all secretly hating that one person at the congratulations barbecue later or something? But anyway, it's kind of neat, and I like seeing the way that people envision it, because even I wonder what it's like, the relationship between the person that envisions what it's supposed to look like and then the person
actually
that
designs.
actually puts it in the game. Like who's the boss there? I mean, it's always nice when you have a nice working relationship, but I can always picture something like, the person who's actually putting it in game is like, no. This is how it's going to look. This is how it's going to stay. Nice picture though. Or if the person who drew is like, excuse me, that's not do justice. I don't think so. You need to fix this, this, and this. But anyway, yeah, cool concept art. Patches just.
There were a few of them, yep.
Well, here, check this out. There was something in the announcements that I noticed while I was going through Reddit. I was going through GGG's posts, and Bex had a reply to somebody.
Okay.
So this is in GGG's post, an overview of upcoming changes, and we can get to that in a sec. And then somebody posted, one of the 3,500 comments posted, Have you ever considered hiring an AI engineer to develop an AI that can run thousands of maps or league content so that you can get a good idea about what kind of loot is dropping on average? It could save you a lot of pain and tuning. And Bex's response to this was, yes, that is part of our process.
Cool.
In the most recent test of 1,000 maps we ran on it, for example, it found 51% more unique items and 3.3% less currency compared to 3.18.1F. And that was with no sentinels activated. So this, and she's still going, this is some of the data that we're using to help our internal discussions when we talk about how item drop rates feel.
That's cool.
That is cool. I wonder if that's something, I mean, it doesn't seem like that's something that they run all the time. Otherwise, I doubt they would have had the drop rates that would have had at league launch. But that is still cool that they have something like that. I like seeing that kind of stuff because it puts a lot more faith and trust in some of the things that fans like us see as screw ups. You know what I mean? Like, for example, even our opinions at the beginning of the league, we thought that drop rates were all completely messed up. It wasn't worthwhile. So, but when you see these kinds of stats, or at least the fact that they do this kind of thing, it does give you a little bit more faith in that it's not just, I feel like it's going to be this way. They've actually got some solid data there. So be cool to see how often they run that. But I thought that was really neat to hear because that's not something you'll ever get in an announcements thing. Those are the posts. That's why I follow GGG on Reddit. That is cool. Those are the things that I like, or the Mark_GGG replies, because otherwise you can get everything that's actually important from the announcements page. You got to cover the patch notes unless you want me to read stuff in the meantime.
Well, so they came out with a few. Obviously, the first one was .0F, which was their Archnemesis modifier change, which we knew was coming, and that actually came out. It was basically nerfing a lot of the AN defensive modifiers. It's a start. I still have issues with a lot of Archnemesis, unfortunately. Like, I'm not a huge fan. And it's been the way for a long time. It's not obvious. Sometimes they're stacking way too hard, and sometimes it makes it not as enjoyable, I think, as it could be. And some of them are just so much worse. It's crazy how you can get a combo where it's like, okay, it's no big deal. And then you get a combo and you're like, what the F was that? I don't even know what just did that.
That's to me, that's essence. Because to me, I don't know what essence of this does and essence of that. Like, I get the basic concept of the style of, for some of them, like, hatred or anger or whatever, like, you can grasp the elemental stuff as you get used to what certain auras are called, but there's more essences than I know what they do. And then the corresponding skill makes no sense to me. Like, it seems like every single essence I come across has this, like, those blood balls that come out and give you corrupted blood, but they're absolutely everywhere. And then there's this exploding ice nova, and it's one of the 4 essences there. But then you also have, 1, 2, 3, 4
Archnemesis
what are they called? Archnemesis modifiers. And so I still try and focus on the white stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Because that actually
at
tells
least it's
me
actual information.
Right. But I don't often get the opportunity to see it because now, granted, I haven't had a lot of gameplay since G came out, right? F and G came out. And then there's still stuff that they're talking about.
Yeah, we'll get into it.
As far as I remember properly. But anyway, yeah. So I hear you, though. Archnemesis is hit and miss. Some of it's really cool. Some of it is completely out to lunch.
Yeah, it was a start for at least making them a little bit better. They came out with some like a Kalandra changes as well. Most of it at that time was focused on Legion and Metamorph, which the Legion change was actually a very good change because Legion was coming out with like its normal 4-second, 5-second delay, which was just so short. Like, what's the point? The whole point when you play Legion on a map is you focused it in the Atlas passive, so you've got it lasting for much longer. In the lake, it was lasting for 4 seconds on a whole tile. You just couldn't, unless you had a build for it, you weren't clearing it. Now it's like 11 or 12 seconds, so it's or it might even be longer than that. It's very good. That change to increase the duration was good. It still can be quite difficult. Metamorphosis is, I hate Metamorph. It's way too hard for just the absolute trash that you get from it. And the idea of not having minions now is fine, except I wish it still did it. Just don't put Archnemesis mods on them.
Oh, you mean they
don't spawn anything.
Metamorph doesn't spawn any extra ads.
Which that was changed at the beginning of the league. And I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it now. I wish they would come back with it and just not put Archnemesis mods on the minions, because the minions they just help with so many builds. Having more things to kill is typically to the benefit of most builds. And so, you know what, whatever. I'm not sure where Metamorph goes because it's not in a good spot for me personally. And then there were some client crashes and stuff that they fixed. Yeah. They came out with a hotfix that was for a crash as well. And then G.
Yeah. The Archnemesis modifiers from F were a lot of the defensive ones that they were talking about adding. So for those that were looking for the defensive changes as opposed to offensive changes, F was your patch.
There's not even been any talk about changing the offensive side of them. It was all focused on defensive. They haven't even said anything about changing the offensive side. And the problem
that's a wait and see thing. That's a wait and see thing for me, but go ahead.
Well, sure it is, but I'm saying they haven't said anything. So you can wait and see for anything. There's been no indication from them that that's coming. And I think what you mentioned last episode with BK is something they really need to do, which is if offense rolls, then defense rolls. If defense rolls, then offense rolls. Stop letting it stack up with 3 or 4 defensive or 3 or 4 offensive. It's not fun. It's not fun in this game to die to something you have no idea what caused it. And I will say it's not even related to that at all, but I just want all of the ground shit, after death shit to just go away. I'm so done with it. I hate the idea. Like Josh and I are doing maps, and we had a good time. I didn't have a ton of time to play this week. Actually, I did play a bit, but it was amazing how many times we were like trying to maybe click on the map of the mirror tablet or whatever. We wanted to build our thing. But we both had to wait on the outside of it until the garbage on the ground disappeared, because there was like a cold degen that you couldn't. That stuff is so, it's existed forever. I understand, but it's just, make it go away faster. All the mobs are dead. We're just sitting there waiting 2-3 seconds for it to go away. I understand it's only 2-3 seconds, but that feels like an eternity when you're just trying to map and you're trying to continue through.
In Dark Souls 1, when you kill Gravelord Nito, all the skeletons disappear.
That's what should happen. I don't want undead. Yeah, I don't want anything.
Dark Souls 2, right? Like we're talking like 11 years ago. Like when bosses die, the danger has passed.
I did it. I killed them. Their stuff should go away. I get it that it's not realistic, but neither is fighting some giant skeleton with a shield. So
or like poison balls dropping on your head.
Right. Oh my God. Poison balls I still had so much fun with that with Josh, because he screams like a child when green balls come out. It's so fun.
It's fun to play with.
The thing is with the green balls, I'll at least give them the benefit that they added the delay. It's actually the same with the fire ones from the other guys. There's a delay, but it's still stupid. There's still way too many of them, and let it fall and hit me once. Don't let it fall, put stuff on the ground, and that ground lingers for 4 seconds. I don't understand why they have to just convolute the ground with stuff. I don't want that. I love that it flies through the air. It's visually, I can see it. You know,
I am quite cognizant of it now. Whatever the changes they've visually done to it, including the delay, have
you can sometimes miss it, but it's good. It's better, and it doesn't hit you right away. There is a delay, but I wish it just did that. It falls, it hits, and that's it. There's no more stuff. All the stuff that happens to the ground. Anyway, that's besides the point. Anyway, 3.19.0G. So we're still not at 3.19.1 yet. So
I know one's gonna be good,
guys. Yeah, they're bringing harvest back in 0.1. So what do we have?
You talk G? Like it's not there.
It's not there. We'll get into harvest in a minute.
No, you know what 0.1 is? 0.1 is getting rid of harvest completely.
They need to pick
the beep up.
No, I'm with people on the nonsense of harvest. I would love for them to take it away just so this never happens again. But the game needs harvest. Unfortunately, it does. The game needs harvest.
I unfortunately agree. Yeah. Just because of the state of drops, but we know my opinion on that. And my opinion though is the same as like GGG wants to improve it. They've already said that they're trying to change it. And obviously this is a huge league that shows they are trying to change how drops work, this, that, and another thing.
Well, we'll come back to that when we talk about that in a minute. So G was like just basic. There wasn't actually a ton of stuff.
Yeah. Me. Before I left, I was trying out, I realized I hadn't updated my bone zombie build on console yet. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I actually got to see how the bone zombie build works in a T16 without unnatural strength, with the new permanent, what is it? Unholy might. And I'm like, oh, dang, but I changed some of my offensive gems for the links. So my zombies running around with like 3 level 1 gems, support to damage gems. But still, I had a good time. And I'm like, all right. So, and here's one of the, and it's not necessarily a criticism because GGG is doing their absolute best. Like they're pumping out communication now. And they did try to in the past. It was just a miscommunication previously with all the uproar at the beginning of the league. So anyway, they mentioned in the pro, what we're working on, what this is, something about those lightning mirage guys. I hate them. Awful. I hate them, and I hate them, and then I hate them some more. And if they died 6 times, that's still not enough. I hate them. And so anyway, but they start showing like in the thing, like what we're working on, and this is how often they're going to spawn based on this and that. And I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't. It's going to
make them spawn further away too, so they weren't right on top of the mob, which is good.
And so I guess based on how many times you hit that lightning person, that's how many things would show up in like 0.5 seconds, right? So if you have a minion build that's just constantly smacking them, like running away. So anyway, I'm expecting. So one of the consequences to that like early communication was I couldn't remember if it was already applied or if it was coming. And in my head, it was already a patch that had happened. So I'm playing, and these lightning mirage guys, there's like 1,000 of them on the screen, I feel like. And I'm like, you remember in Dumb and Dumber when Jim Carrey drives the wrong way because he was playing with Jeff Daniels while he was sleeping, and instead of going to the Rockies, they're just in the flats, and he's like, that John Denver's full of shit. Well, I felt like saying, like, after GGG made these, now again, the patch hadn't happened yet, but in my head it had, so I'm playing around and I'm like, that GG's full of shit. This sucks. But it wasn't there. So anyway, but I had a good time playing with it. But G, the whole segue is G, the very first improvement was the addition of lightning mirages spawned by monsters now spawn a short distance away from the player instead of right on top of them. And this modifier now has a 2-second cooldown, which was previously 0.75 seconds.
Yeah.
And the lightning mirages now have a 1-second cooldown until they can use their explosive, but that's previously 2.
Yeah,
so now when you see them, you really got to run. Yeah. There's no more delay. But anyway, that was that. So I didn't get to play with G, but I am very excited to play with G.
Yeah, they've done some lake fixes too. So like the when you complete an area now, it fades out a little bit when you're looking at it, when you hit V to bring it up, and it does the little
V to bring what up?
V to bring up the whole map of like what your tile set is for.
The terrain collision. Yep.
No. V brings up the actual, how did you build your...
Yep. Yeah.
So how you build that, they'll like be faded out if you've completed them. And when you complete all of them, the little icon down at the bottom right corner now has a blue circle around it, which is at least something. It's at least something that shows you when it's completed. I still don't like the drops in Kalandra. I don't think they're where they should be, but
really? Okay.
No, Josh and I did a bunch, and what I will say about them, fantastic for XP. If you're doing the like item or the monster level to what you're at, so I think most of the ones I'm doing are 83 monster level. Surprisingly, the XP in there seems like it's ramped up, because I can get quite good XP in the Lake of Kalandra, which I appreciate that, because then I actually feel like there's some decent benefit, and I'm in the 90s, so it actually, I could actually see it and feel it, which was quite nice. And it was actually helping Josh level as well and catch up by running some of the higher monster level ones with me. But it's so frustrating to clear a tile, click a chest, and like nothing drops. And if you hold down Alt, it's like just some piece of garbage. I just want something. I cleared it. I want to see something that's at least reasonable. Maybe it's not for me, but at least there's a thing there. The currency ones actually seemed decent, but all the non-currency related ones just felt a little flat. And the ones that don't give you a chest are the worst, the absolute worst. Beyond. Why do I not get a reward? I don't understand that. I don't understand why there's not a chest with like some tainted currency or something. The Beyonds are wickedly hard, like really, really tough, and there's no chest in them. I don't understand why there's not a chest in some of them. So
it would
I
be
want a
really
chest in
cool,
every
even
one.
if Essence, even if Essence had a chest,
Yes.
you click on it, you get a couple Essence.
Yep.
Sweet. Appropriate to the tier of
Sure,
whatever's
of what you're
going
doing.
on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be
Just start
something for me to
stacking them.
click on each one, and that gets a little bit frustrating. But in general, the XP was quite a bit better, which I liked.
The base concept in games of reward chests are the most exciting thing. That is the whole reason. Like, for example, in Dark Souls or Elden Ring, I am going through every nook and cranny. If I can see that I can go on that ledge, I'm walking all the way around that castle to see if there's that shiny there. That's exactly the same thing as a chest. And like when you go through these maps in this game that have like 1,000 chests, just like, I'm not talking the league specific chest here, but just those maps where it's like there's 1,000 chests riddled throughout the game. Like that one map, I don't know, there's some lava areas that just have 1,000 of them. It's just so like I've learned to completely ignore chests. I only care about drops or the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
So when they came out with that idea of an actual loot chest that wasn't like their other garbage that could sometimes literally drop nothing, which is, I got excited. So yeah, I too, no matter what their opinion regarding like how that would change the marketplace or the amount of currency that's pumping out, it would be nice to click on something and get something.
Yeah,
I like that.
I want to jump to the two last ones, which was they did an announcement on the overview of upcoming changes and then follow up on recent feedback. But you have this one thing. Do you want to bring that up first?
To me, it's not important. It's just GGG cutting out cheating.
Yeah,
stuff.
there was some cheat thing that people were claiming. I thought their post was fine.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, they were saying that the only reason they have tons of tools that cut out cheating and different types of things, and I don't know how this it was kind of like a tool that would help people know which Pantheon bosses were valuable enough to farm, or like the better ones. Mm-hmm. And people that make these tools, I assume, know the do's and don'ts of how you're allowed to interact with the game, right? Like different, like
they're being purposefully because they know it breaks terms of service in this particular case,
right? And so when you're making tools, you obviously want to know the terms of service. So I don't go through those parts. I play the vanilla version. I don't have like a trade thing, so I just assume people should be asking questions. Like I've had questions about the terms of service when we were starting the podcast about things we were and weren't allowed to do with like icons and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And customer service gets back to you wonderfully. They've always been fantastic. And so when there's people that make these tools, they have those opportunities. And I don't really feel bad for people when they're...
No, I don't feel bad.
Right.
This was purposely done to break the terms of service.
But it was interesting the only thing that was interesting about this post to me was the fact that the only reason GGG made it is because there was a big kerfuffle in the community about it, when apparently it was like almost a non-issue to GGG because it's something they deal with all the time.
Sure. However, what I will say is this whole thing coming up is their own fault. They've created a situation in the game right now where if I want to maximize my loot, I need to find specific Archnemesis modifiers combined together. And when I find them, if I want to maximize the loot from them, I need to go back into my hideout, put on magic find gear, get a group of people together to get the bonuses, and that's where I'm going to get my currency and better drops from. And they've done this to themselves. Like they've mentioned that they need to look at something to fix this because they've created this awful thing now where you're looking for specific Archnemesis modifiers because that's what they've tied loot to. That's what they've tied this currency drop to, these bigger jumps of currency. They've created this situation where you need to find them, and then you need to kill them with magic find and rarity and quantity gear on, and in a full group. And it's actually really, really awful. It's such a bad way to set it up. I don't know what their solution is to it, because I actually really like that loot is tied to the Archnemesis mod. I think it's really fun that, I mean, most of them are garbage. I don't need 40 flasks to drop from a mob, but I like the idea that certain types of loot could be more common or drop in more amounts.
Sure, more common, not exclusive. Yeah,
and they're not exclusive, but they're much more focused, or they're much more prevalent if you can find these modifiers together. And they've basically turned it right now where people, if they wanted to maximize, which I don't, it's fine, I'll just play it however, but there are a lot of people that want to maximize the loot. So they find the modifier, then they find a group of people, they find someone who's a color with magic find and quantity and rarity gear, and then they go in and kill it. That is not Path of Exile at all. That's not how the game's meant to be played. I don't know what their solution is, but they kind of have made this bed for themselves, and I don't know what the solution is going to be on that, but like, it's so bad that they even referenced it in their own stuff, where Chris talked about, oh, you know, 50 divines drop, and that's why, though. It's because you found this modifier, then you had a full group, then you used magic find, a magic find calling character, and killed it. And so I can understand the frustration of people if they're in that like min-max, try to get the most out of it. And I don't know what the solution is to it, but it's not fun. I really don't like that they've made it where your focus is trying to find specific modifiers and then do so. I don't want to go back to my hideout and change my gear just to get better stuff. I'm already there. I want to play it. I want to keep going through, but I don't want to do it at the cost of a massive boost in my currency. So yeah, I don't know what the solution is, but anyway, they did 2 posts. So they had the overview of upcoming changes. I think people called you out and were talking about this because they were doing some changes for minions. I think that was like minion survivability was a big part. It hasn't come out yet, I don't think, right? I think this is an overview. This came out on the 30th of August. We're recording the first week of September. So I don't remember if this has come out yet or not.
Let me just double check with the patch notes.
So they had limiting Archnemesis mods.
The F was on the 30th and G was on the 31st.
But that one didn't address minion stuff yet, I don't think.
No, it did not.
So they've got stuff with they're going to try and limit the number of Archnemesis modifiers that can spawn on rares, and something to do with like in boss fights and ones that can't drop items. So we'll see how that goes. This is where they said, we're monitoring the current situation where players feel forced to swap items or hire a magic find color against specific 4 modifier Archnemesis monsters. We don't have an immediate solution for this, but we're actively looking into it. I hope they come up with something for that, because I don't like,
that's what you're talking
absolutely
about.
hate that. That's not Path of Exile at all. Improvements to the Kalandra League, which is good. So this is all stuff coming, buffing tainted currency, and then the harvest one they talk about in the next one. So we'll talk about that in a second. And then minion survivability. You haven't really played, so I'm not sure.
No, I'm still in white maps. I come across, now this is new since Archnemesis became core, and of course Archnemesis has been modified, I feel like, every week since it became core last league, but there's just certain combinations that just wipe out your team. And sure, some of them are essence, but again, how am I to know? Like, there's nothing in the game that tells me that these are offensive or defensive or what. Like, the description of an essence modifier is the same thing as an Archnemesis modifier. To me, it's useless without something in game, like what's it called, that thing at the end of fancy books that tells you what's what.
Glossary.
Yeah, wexactly. Without a glossary, there's glossary.
I noticed that was really good.
That's how I've always said it too. With the, how do you say it?
Glossary.
Oh, gull, not gull. Yeah. Okay, glossary. Oh, I feel like I'm choking.
You can say however you want.
All right, chieftain.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, no, like without a glossary, there's no value for it to me. There's too many of them. Even if I can hover over every single essence in the essence tab, I'm still not going to remember it.
Sure.
So there's just some combos that you don't know ahead of time, but then when you click, all your zombies are dead. And so it is kind of a pain. And I actually have decent extra survivability. So I have a ton of survivability on the tree, as I've repeated many times throughout the weeks, but I also have decent amount of minion survivability on my gear. I'm just in white maps. They're stacked way better than I am, and they can get annihilated. And that's when it comes to static, like your permanent minions, that's it really, like, with appropriate investment, it shouldn't happen, because I've chosen that investment. It's not like I'm supposed to make them immortal, but I do need to know what's scary. So hopefully this turns into some, what they say, we're aware of the feedback around minion survivability, and we're making it so that certain monster auras and debuffs, such as rejuvenating and executioner mods, don't apply to minions.
So it seems like they're trying to buff them by nerfing other things, not actually buffing
Well,
minions.
you can't because there's like corpse explosion builds and all that kind of stuff. Like you do have to be careful how it applies. So I do think that's quite smart. Hopefully they look at combinations as well of Archnemesis mods. What was next though?
The rest of the stuff was actually stuff they addressed with G and F, which was lightning mirages, terrain collision. So that was good. And then they just recently came out with the following up on recent feedback. So they talked about Archnemesis. There were some delve changes which were good.
Heralding minions is like one of the worst skills in the game.
What is that one?
That's the one where they so heralding minions is apparently where those totems come up and they do that AoE like lightning totem, and it's like 5 of them spawn right where you are, and that needs more of a delay. They need to show up so that you can be like run and then you can get away, because the only time you know they're there is after they've hit you. And most of the time that's a restart at checkpoint bit. So it's terrifying.
There's a lot of this post. I think people should be a little bit careful or just a little bit understanding, because if you remember when this league came out in the first week of it, and then we didn't hear stuff, and people were, a big part of people complaining was, you're not communicating, you're not communicating, you're not communicating, you need to communicate, you said you communicate. So I think people need to be careful with the fact that this post, which is, at least they're telling us, they're not giving solutions, but they're saying, we understand this is an issue, we're trying to figure out what to do. And that's at least communicating. Whether they've got a solution for it or not, people need to understand they're at least they're giving some credence to the concern, and they're saying we're trying to figure out how to do that, which was a lot of this. Like a lot of the Archnemesis stuff is, we understand that this is what people are frustrated with, and we're looking into it, we're trying to figure it out, this is something we're discussing. The Kalandra League, there was an issue with rock formations, which thankfully it's coming up in a future patch, but you couldn't hide behind rock formations, which didn't make any sense because I can't shoot through them, but yet enemies could. So that's coming up with a future patch, which I think will be good. There's supposed to be some beyond difficulty ratio scaling. So it just says we're going to investigate this. They're going to make the reflecting mist 50% more common, which whatever, it's just 50% more garbage that you can vendor. Like the reflecting mist is very rare to get something. It's fun to look at them, but it literally is just some alterations and alch shards. That's mostly what you're getting from them. So the one I want to talk about though is harvest, and they made one fix, which we did talk about, which I like. You can now see how much life force you have at the horticrafting station, which is a good change. They talk about the fact that there's concern and complaints about the removal of some harvest crafts. And then this is the only thing I had some issue with. They're saying that harvest crafting was balanced by how difficult it was to get the crafts that you want. This is what they're talking about before. Now that crafts are tradable, harvest power was reduced to be more in line with other crafting methods. We understand there's a call for us to bring back those crafts. It's not really possible while allowing harvest to remain tradable. Harvest was always tradable. That's silly. Harvest was always tradable. You could go onto, unfortunately, a Discord server that had, I think it was like 200,000 or 300,000 players in it. So it wasn't like just a small subset of the community. It was a very large group of the community, and you could trade harvest in there. Their whole focus with this league was they didn't want people having to turn to TFT, this Discord channel, in order to get your harvest. And we got excited. Oh, that's so cool. Now I can get the life force. All the crafts are available. I don't need it. The tradable life force is awesome, but it's still it's always been tradable. Unless you played solo self-found, that's not new. That's not something that's new that's come up. I'm still not understanding why they got rid of some of the really good crafts in harvest. If I have 2 options. One, focus harvest. I'm going to focus harvest. I'm going to get all the things, get all the life force, and I'm going to now be able to craft what I want to craft. Some of the things at very high cost, which it should be, but I had to get that harvest material, that life force, or my alternative was to buy it. I still am trying to grasp what the downside to that is. I don't understand. We've talked about this in past episodes too. There's a whole thing of trying to control power creep, but this to me was not a necessary one. They brought this really cool system in to make us not rely on a Discord server to get some of the strong harvest crafts, but then they took away the strong harvest crafts. That's not a solution. That just sucks. It really actually just sucks for the crafting side of harvest. It was so exciting to think I could target harvest, which I originally was until I saw all the stuff they took out. Target harvest, get the life force, and you can do the craft now. You have access to it. It's there. And if I was playing in a trade league and didn't have enough to do it, then I would have to buy the life force for it. I still can't understand the downside to that. I've seen some people say, well, just make harvest life force not tradable. I'm trying to think of, I don't think there's much anymore that's not tradable, but make it not tradable because then it doesn't matter. Well, the problem is then you push people back to a Discord server.
Well, that completely defeats the purpose of it.
Right. I think
you just go back to the old
make
way.
it tradable and give the crafts. I don't understand. Like, I think it's such a weird combination because you go from a league where you could craft the most incredible stuff, but at risks. I had recombinators last league. I had to go, if I wanted certain crafts, to go onto the TFT Discord. There were ways to create some really great items. I like that there was some risk involved, not on the TFT side. I hate the idea of somebody getting scammed, but recombinators had risk. Now they've gone, those are gone. They've given us the life force, but they've taken away some of the strongest crafts. And I can't wrap my head around why they think that that's a good trade-off versus letting me choose if I want to target farm harvest, which keeps me in the game, keeps me playing, lets me play the stuff that I want because I'm going to try and collect this life force, or buy it from someone who wants to sell it, which then the market adjusts and life force becomes worth a lot, especially if you're trying to get specific crafts. Maybe the purple life force is worth more than the rest, whatever it is. I don't understand why they didn't just keep those crafts and make them expensive. I think it was way too heavy-handed on the harvest side. I think they should have just left that. What is the worst thing that happens if you leave it in for one league? You brought in this whole new system of this life force, which is so cool. Why not just see how it goes for the league? And then if you go, okay, we left that stuff in and we found that it was maybe too easy to get, maybe you make some adjustment to harvest, but I feel like doing both just, I don't like it. I don't like what they've done with harvest. And I don't think it's a solution to say, it was too strong and we can't bring it in because it's tradable now. It was always tradable. It's always been tradable. You gave us the option to not have to use a Discord server, but then took away the reason to need it. So
now it's kind of like back to 50-50 maybe, where if you, well, I guess not anymore, no. But once Archnemesis and loot is at a place where GGG actually likes it, and they're only making minor changes like they would for their entire career until 319. We've talked in the past getting rid of harvest completely.
Yeah, you need loot 2.0 to have that.
You need better loot and honestly a better item based system than you currently have as well. Mod pool drops, all that kind of stuff. But to me, harvest is still conflicting with the core idea of how the game works. I'm sure GGG knows that because they've made it and they've made it. Well,
what do you think?
The idea at the end of the day, and I know that's not where we're at, and that's where we agreed that the game kind of needs harvest at this current state, but at the end of the day, your most powerful items need to be from the ground. And then you're modifying them with items that you have, but to have a crafting bench that makes so many of your normal currency items almost obsolete is still pretty conflicting.
Yeah, but you couldn't use harvest entirely to make your best items. You were still using crafting currency, the normal crafting bench, and then harvest was being used to supplement and help it out. And the problem is the game has not been about the best drops on the ground forever.
I agree.
It has, yeah. And I would love the idea of like the dropped gear is the best gear, but most people don't pick up drop gear anymore. It's just, you're not going to get something that's good. And I feel like sometimes they're trying to make you weaker for fun. And harvest to me was a weird one because you and I talked about this. Again, this is going back to like the very first week of the league. So some things have improved a little bit, but not enough. You took away the drops and you took away harvest. Like we have to have at least one of those. Otherwise it's hard to play the game. And when you take away both, it's pretty tough. And then they kind of adjusted loot a little bit. It's still not great, but it's a little bit, but then you still like, it's so weird to me that they couldn't just go, let's see how this league goes. We already know we're coming in with some pretty heavy-handed changes. Let's see how it works with the crafting side of it, because I don't understand what, and we talked about this last week, and we've actually talked about this for many weeks. What's the goal? What's the direction? Where are we trying to go with Path of Exile? Do you want me to focus on trying to get the loots from the ground or do you want me to try and focus on getting the loot that I'm crafting? I don't know what they want. And when you take away, my thinking is when you take away some of those really strong harvest crafts, you must have been thinking, we're doing this because the loot on the ground will be better, but it's not. And it's just weird to me that they didn't just go, let's bring in this very cool system for harvest, this really cool life force. Screw the server. You don't have to go to it anymore. Now you can do it. Why not just leave the crafts and just play out 319 and see how it went?
Right.
And then if you realize like, okay, maybe there was an issue, maybe this was too cheap, maybe whatever, make them more expensive. But you, by taking it away, I think you've actually given the biggest slap in the face to somebody who plays SSF, because previously in SSF, you could target the harvest and it would take you a long time, but you would find that craft eventually. Save it to your horticulture station. You could eventually get it. Then they bring in this system where now you can get the life force. Oh, that's great. I don't have to be so worried about which ones do I save. I just need to focus on doing as much harvest as I can get, and eventually I'll get it. And then they took the crafts away, and it's like, that's even harder now for them. So I really hope harvest is, I mean, they seem to be set, and it is what it is. We've talked about this before. They're not doing something to screw their game. They seem pretty certain that this is where they want harvest to be. I just don't understand why. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I want to be able to eventually make that crazy strong character in the end. I want to get a month and a half. I get it for some people, it's a week into the league, but for you and I want to get a month and a half into the league and feel like I've kind of gotten my character super strong. And it's not that you can't now, it's just they've taken away some of the fun ways to do it. So, and I was so looking forward to the life force. And as soon as I saw the changes, I don't do harvest at all. It's been blocked on my Atlas since like day 3 or 4.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this goes long term. There's obviously people that play more than us. I saw a funny little video about, and I don't agree with this, but I thought it was funny. It was just, you know, a video of what GGG thinks the average player is, and it's somebody just destroying maps, and then it's like what the real player is, and it's someone who plays like me, where it's like pew, 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 dead. You know, and having a good time. So there was a few examples back and forth, and it made me laugh, even though I don't agree with it. But I do think there needs to come. I think one of the hardest things they have to do is who are they balancing the game for, and that's always going to be a conversation. And this, I mean, we had a lot of talks about this when there was a lot of controversy about in the community, of course, about, well, you're designing the game around the top 1% as opposed to the bottom 99% or whatever. But at some point, the company does need to choose, and I'm sure they have, but it's none of our business. They're just making the game the best that they can, and they're trying to incorporate as many types of play styles and personal schedules as they can. But at some point, when you're making these changes, you have to pick one of them at some point. And so maybe it's just not for us, the harvest stuff.
Well, the harvest change affected everyone, and that's why I don't understand. It wasn't like they just made it harder, like said, okay, it's going to be 100,000 life force to craft this, and people be like, oh, it's ridiculous, I can't play enough for that. I could at least go, yeah, they clearly focus this on people who are no life in the game. To fully just remove it, I actually don't understand it. It seems so weird to me, especially when they brought out such a cool system. I remember we talked about, I was pumped for the idea of life force. It was so exciting to think, now it's up to me, I can do it if I want to. And then they're like, yeah, you know, those really good crafts, there are still a lot of crafts in there, but they're not nearly worth focusing harvest on anymore. So it's just I can't figure out what their direction is. I can't figure out if, I would love for it eventually to be the loot is on the ground and maybe you're going to try and exalt it, you know, maybe what, but that doesn't work until they go, hey, if you're in yellow and red maps, you're never, ever going to see anything but tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 mods. The loot on the ground is useless until that happens, because I can't make a piece of gear work that's got 2 or 3 tier 7 rolls on it. It's just, I can't make it work. So
I love the idea of that like 12 tier mod system, but like you said, when I'm in item level 83, if I'm getting +6 life on my gear, I'm like,
it's wrecked it.
Well, exactly. But then there's so many mods that can roll on each different base type that even if you did restrict it, now like Justin said, whether it's T4, whether the baseline is, you know, let's say at an item level 83 or monster level 83, when you're going for your 84s, 85s, and 86s, whether it's T4, T5, whatever it is, having that restriction of this is the lowest it can roll. There's still so many mods that can roll on so many items that so much of that gear isn't going to work. And at the end of the day, it's still not going to be the most powerful because you're still looking at the rarity of influenced items. You're still looking at the rarity of all these other things that you can do with it, yet you at least have solid bases. Not like base types, but like, okay, good, I have resists. Okay, great, I have life. Okay, great, I have accuracy and damage on my melee weapon. Like, you have the basics. For me right now, I'm still not capped for resists, and it is hurting a lot. But I actually haven't even seen one harvest yet. Went through the campaign, went through nice and efficiently, didn't see whatever her name is, Ashabi once. I haven't seen her. I've probably done 12, 15 white maps. Haven't seen her once. So I don't know. Maybe she only starts showing up in yellow maps. But
yeah,
I was excited for the staggered release. Remember the staggered release when like you would click on a harvest and it would just be the magic monsters first, and then just the rare monsters, and then just the unique monster. I was really excited for that.
It's pretty close. It does do it, but they're pretty close
it's like
together.
Bang, bang, bang.
It's like take a breath. Here's the next one. Like it's not. It's
better
not.
Than it was
it's
before.
at least something. But it's yeah. I think you could make a big argument for loot being much better if there was some tiered system to the mods that could drop compared to the tier of the map you're or the area tier of the area you're in, because then at least the drops have a better chance. Obviously, still 80% of it's not going to work because it's going to be modifiers that don't mesh well or work with your build, but at least you know there's a better chance. Because right now I can pick up a great base that's absolute garbage, and my ability to craft it is very difficult because of the changes with. So you have to either let them both work together or pick one, and it doesn't seem like there's either of those right now. I can't get the drop on the ground, I can't craft the item, and I can't take the dropped item and craft right now. Like there's no best
cohesion
solution or something right now. So I would like to see maybe that's something they're working on, but the harvest craft, for them to take them out, in my head go, they got to have a plan. There's got to be something else that maybe just isn't here yet that is going to make there be a reason for why they felt like they needed to pull that out. I just would have rather seen a whole league where we actually got to experience the harvest of last league without the nonsense of a Discord where you could get screwed over, where I could do it. It was up to me. If I wanted to focus on it, that was up to me. That's the only thing that I feel like I missed out on, because it would have been a lot of fun, but it is what it is.
Do you think that maybe the crafts that were too strong were removed only because otherwise the harvest or the life force cost would have been so high that people would have still used TFT anyway?
But you wouldn't have needed to use TFT though at that point, because you could have just bought the life force. There'd be no
depending
reason.
on what the cost was. Maybe I'm thinking that GGG had that life force cost so high that so few people would be able to use it that it would just be TFTing anyway. No, because you'd be paying the price either way. Right, that's right.
So it would have just become my ability to do it myself. So I don't really know the reasoning. I'm holding on to hope that it's because they've got something planned and something's coming, but it would have been just fun to experience a league with this new cool harvest change in its full effect. And by taking some of them away, for me, it really killed the excitement for this life force, because the crafts that I would have really cared about aren't there anymore. So we'll see what happens, but they seem to be pretty set on it.
Good news, Just.
What's up?
We are making it so that Eldritch Exalts, Chaos, and Annulments will drop in lower area levels, and they're also buffing their drop rates. That's awesome. That's cool. I love that stuff. That's one of my favorite new things that they've done in the last year or two. And because I'm such a big, I do Maven a lot. Because especially last league, because they got rid of all of my favorite maps last league. So I was like, well, I'm not favoriting any. So I'm just going to go for Maven because I can use her on the variety of maps that I'm doing. So I haven't really seen many of those currency items at all. So so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah. Oh, I had the wrong one.
Do you want to tell me about your week in PoE?
Yeah, well, I did play before I left for the week to the interior. So one thing that I did notice that I quite enjoyed about the new setup, maybe this was from last league, but I didn't notice it, but challenges are displayed in a nice way. Like when you complete a challenge, it's a nice big square rectangle on your screen. It shows you when you unlock an MTX, it's like nice, big and bright, and it shows you that you've unlocked it. It's not just this nice, small little text thing, but it's big, it's in your face, but I didn't find it too intrusive. I could still keep playing, but I was aware that I'd unlocked an MTX as I was going through my challenges, and I'm like, wow, that's I really like that new heads up display. That was really cool. And let's see, I'm absolutely loving the slow-mo zombies build that I brought back. As an occultist, I'm using Bane with 3 curses and spiritual aid, but also it's poison and speed specific for my zombies and summon phantasms, and I am having a fantastic time with it. Nice. Not getting to play a lot, so I can't really comment on drop rates and mod rates and all that kind of stuff, but I'm very pleased so far with its efficiency, and I'm looking forward to progressing through the Atlas and seeing what it is like in some nicely juiced T16 content. What else did I do? Oh yeah, I respec my Bone Zombies build, but I mentioned that was my Necromancer version. That was the build that I've had since 3.0 of zombies it used to be my guide. So anyway, I respec'd it into this more current version to see how that was. And I was actually quite impressed with it, but I did have to take it with a grain of salt because 3 of the supports were at level 1. But I quite enjoyed it, still doing a T16 to unlock the full Atlas and Standard, right? So you do a Legacy T16, and then you do it with the bonus objective. So you do a Legacy T16 before you convert all your maps. You alch it, you val it, and then you run it. And it unlocks everything except for T16s. And so you get almost all of your Atlas points. You can respec that whole thing. And so that was a lot of fun. And it was nice to see that the zombies were doing quite well. Let's see. What else did I do? Oh, yeah. I tried, I respec my Raider to do that SRS experiment that I wanted. Without that cluster jewel, I forget what it was. A few people on Discord have mentioned it to me. BK mentioned it last time. There's that medium cluster notable that makes it so that your minions don't die for 4 seconds after they've been cast. Without that cluster jewel, minions with no survivability investment are completely pointless. Like I could not.
SRS always sucked without that cluster jewel, like an end game,
which is kind of lame. I mean,
same with skeletons.
Maybe that's the idea, but that, I don't know. It's a hard balance because these duration minions, do you need minion life? Maybe, I guess. That's always something you should be investing in. If so, there's no way that anybody south of the tree can do it, right? Because it's like you have very little options of investment as a minion player when you're doing minion offense and survivability, including life. And then your own life, like there's nothing else. There's nothing for your own survivability. You really have to squeak it in. Like basically in a build, before you throw gear onto your character, you have the opportunity to invest properly into 3 things, right? And as a minion player, you're going minion life, minion survivability, and then your own health pool. To throw on your own mitigation is very item dependent at that point, or skill dependent in both. So it does make it quite difficult. So anyway, I was excited for the SRS experiment with the Raider. It was a perfect setup, but didn't work. I know that cluster jewel could save me tons of time and effort, but I like my builds to be capable of functioning as I'm playing. I don't like those builds where, okay, I have to have this. Now it's going to work. And I'm not talking like, okay, now I have to have life. I'm saying like, okay, now I need this very specific notable after I've done delirium for this amount of time and this and this. I know people play like that all the time. That's how you plan your builds around uniques, but that's not the way I like to play. I like to just sit down and play and get going. And then if I get that, it enhances the build. It doesn't make the build actually function. So for me and the way I like to play, it was disappointing, not as a criticism. It's just how the game works with the new survivability setup. And what else did I do? Oh, while I was gone, on my phone, because PoE Planner, it's so good. Their mobile setup is the exact same as the desktop setup, and it's all integrated. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, I mixed my gems around a bit. I kept the same gems on all my builds, on my 4 zombie builds, but I was unhappy with the colors that I was putting on certain items. So for example, on a wand, I'd have like 2 red and a green, and that sucks when you're leveling. You know, you want to be able to replace your items over and over and over, and that just wasn't really working out. When you have 2 red and a green, you finally get that color combo while you're leveling or in white maps, and you're like, okay, well, I can't replace this. So for some reason, that wasn't something that crossed my mind, and that's something that's always on my checklist. That's, I guess, one of the cons of doing theory crafting when I don't have my guide checklist of like, okay, did I make sure to do this? Did I make sure to do that? Are my specters not in something, not in a weapon or offhand item? You know what I mean? Because I hate having to resummon them when I switch items or when I switch weapons. And, you know, okay, and to do this, so that was part of my thing. Do the colors of the gems match the item that it's getting socketed into? And so I guess that was something that I accidentally overlooked. So for my 4 zombie builds, I just reorganized the gems. And so they're all the same gems, but I just reorganized them in a way that's a little less thematic. Like I like having all my auras, you know, in one spot. And I like having, you know, my secondary minions like specters and golems, and then the supports that they provide all in one helmet. I had to mix that up, unfortunately, so it's not as easy to remember in my mind. I'll have to reference my own build a little bit more often, but now all the gems are so easy to swap in and out if I end up improving an item somewhere. So anyway, for those that are following those builds, sorry for the change, but your gems are all the same. It'll just be a little bit easier with your item colors now. But yeah, so it was good. I still had a PoE week despite the fact that I was gone, and it was lots to talk about, lots to read about, right? How about you?
Mm-hmm.
You played with Josh lots?
Yeah, I made a new character, made a lightning strike character.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to play with lightning strike. And yeah, it's good. I think I'm level 92 so far. It's been good. I went champion. I think he said that a lot of people play raider, but I just love fortify. But yeah, so it's been actually a lot of fun. I'll maybe tell you more about it in After Dark. We're gonna have to wrap up pretty quick, but I will say I did my first Atlas memory.
Oh, okay.
And I got the Alva Atlas memory. Incursions are reversed is basically what her wording is, which I didn't know what that meant until I clicked her in a map. And it just means all of the incursion spawns right there on top of her, like in the map. So you're fighting all the mobs plus the bosses, and there's like multiple versions of the bosses. So and then as you progress through to the different maps, they get harder and harder. So there's more damage, more life. So there's a couple things about Atlas Memories. One, I like that she whoever the quest giver is provides the map. You can roll it, but you got to have the currency in your inventory. But at least she provides the map, which would be probably really nice when you're first progressing the Atlas. The problem is it doesn't start dropping till you're into tier 14s anyway. So you're probably pretty, because they're so rare, you're probably pretty cleared. And my Atlas is finished, so it wasn't any benefit to me progressing the Atlas at all. But I expected there to be a storyline, and I thought that the storyline would progress through the maps. No, she had one line to say, like one paragraph that she talks about, but it was the exact same paragraph all 4 maps. And that just seemed a little bit disappointing to me. I thought that it was going to progress as I went through the maps. I thought she would start talking about new stuff.
Yeah, they're called memories.
No, it was like the same one for all 4.
Really?
Which seemed odd. Yeah. Josh got the Keurig one, so I'm going to try and run it with him because I am curious about if it's the same thing. But Alva said the same thing for all 4. And then there was nothing that culminated at the end. When I did the final one, there were like 5 Alvas in the map. There were quite a few because you get more and more as you're going through the maps. And they do get quite a bit harder, like very, very difficult, actually. I found them, like my build is quite strong, so it wasn't so bad. But I was thinking, holy crap, if you didn't have a strong build, these would be tough in a T16. But it didn't culminate in anything. When I finished the final one, there was she didn't say anything. I went back to try and talk to her. There was nothing to talk to her about. There was nothing. So I don't actually, besides a bunch of more mobs, I got nothing out of it. It didn't.
Weird.
It was a little weird. There was no, I was looking for more than that. I thought I was going to have like a whole storyline to follow of like her history or whatever, but
that's really disappointing.
There wasn't. So I don't know, maybe it's different with other quest givers, but hers was kind of meh.
I remember a bug that Brandon wrote a long time ago at Electronic Arts for the MLB game that they used to make.
Mm-hmm.
He simmed through 120 seasons, which at that time was the cap for how many seasons the league could go through in the Major League Baseball game. And he simmed through 120 seasons. And when he finished 120 seasons, there was one screen. It was just a splash screen that had a picture of a baseball diamond with the graphics of the early 2000s, like it was.
Yeah.
And it said Thanks for playing.
I would have taken that.
I
would have taken
that. And it wasn't even a bug, but he wrote it up as a bug because like that's garbage. I went through 120 seasons of 164 games, and that's what that's what I get. So it's the same. Like that's you're going through your memories, and it's like that's not a memory.
I was so surprised there was nothing
repeating
at the end.
it. There's not. Well, it's the same that they did with Kalandra. There was like nothing letting you know that you'd finished anything.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe the other memories are different. I'm not sure, but I was besides getting a bunch more mobs, also like the Alva bonuses was she drops more incursion bases and like incursion rolls on them. Okay, fine. I didn't pick up most of the drops she had anyway. So
another one of those mod issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it was interesting. I think they should start earlier. I don't think they should start in tier 14s. It would be so fun to get them to actually help me progress the Atlas, because that's what I would care about them for right now.
Yeah. It's interesting how much GGG added. Like there's so much that was added and changed all at once. You're talking about Harvest, you're talking about Kalandra, you're talking about Archnemesis ties, you're talking about loot drop changes, you're talking about memories, and that's a lot. I mean, it sounds like, and I mean, it sounds like you've only done the one memory, but it sounds like memories and Kalandra were made almost the same way in terms of like
the Kalandra
endings and loot and.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things they're fixing with Kalandra, so that the etchings will make more sense because they'll go in an order, like 1 through whatever.
Oh, I did notice that I started getting some 2s after I've read a 4.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to work, but I actually really enjoy reading her stuff about what had happened, but I don't think there's an end to it. Like, and we're not even a month in, and I do find myself a little bit like, what am I logging on for today if I'm going to play? Already, which is a little weird. And I've got two characters that are both 92, and I really do like the Lightning Strike character, but I'm struggling. Maybe it's because I played so much last league, and the lake for me hasn't been enticing enough for that to be the focus. So I'm not sure yet. I have to see how it goes. Maybe some of these changes will change it. I'm not sure though. Anyway,
I like Age of Empires for Mondays.
Oh my God, some new civilizations are coming. I cannot wait for the Ottomans.
A new friend to play with.
Oh yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so it's going to be fun. Let's wrap this up. Forever Exiled, episode 152 of Forever Exiled, the Path of Exile podcast. I'm Justin, AK Tags.
Tyler, Record of Days.
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us today. And patrons will catch you in After Dark, and everybody else will see you next week in episode 153. If you're looking for more information, you can find it down below. We got a website, foreverexiled.com. We're on Twitter, foreverexiled82. We have a very fun Discord that you should be a part of. And Patreon and other ways to support the podcast, you find them down below or on our website, as previously mentioned.
Oh,
bye.
A good time for you to burn out. Lord of the Rings show came out today. So
yeah,
if
but
you
they're releasing
out,
one at a time.
Whatever, I can binge it. We also started The Sandman. Forgot to mention that. So
so good.
We'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that after dark. All right. Bye-bye.